In a story as multifaceted as a Hollywood plot, a wife and husband paranormal investigation team changed the way America perceives of folklore forever. They turned what was long considered outdated superstition into a new style of scientific research, and on their own terms created a newfound form of alternative academia. But just like the screenplay of a box office film, movie magic may have just been one of the many things at play. This is the story of famed paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. All across America, there are forgotten locations said to be inhabited by the spirits of those who once called them home. We have history here that nobody talks about. There are ancient structures, stone formations, and places lost to time, and I'm hoping to document them all. This is Hazardous Exploration with Preston Hazard. While most people are familiar with the Hollywood portrayal of Ed and Lorraine Warren, depicting them as heroic, well-loved, and almost superhero-like figures, the real-life paranormal investigators were far more complicated. Even their respective backstories are difficult to decipher. In many cases, discerning what was fact and what was fiction proves challenging. Much of what is known about Ed and Lorraine comes directly from the couple themselves, making independent verification all but impossible. While I can't guarantee every detail is entirely accurate, here's what I was able to discern. Part 1. Early life. Ed Warren was born Edward Warren Miney on September 7, 1926, in Bridgeport, Connecticut, to a strict Catholic family. According to Ed, he experienced paranormal activity in his early childhood home, specifically between the ages of 5 and 12, an experience he later claimed sparked his lifelong interest in the supernatural.
For 1 minute, how it feels to be in a house where there's something invisible, intangible, and yet it can create such terror for these people.
At the age of 17, Ed enlisted in the United States Navy and served during World War II. According to his own account, just 4 months after being deployed, the vessel he was serving aboard collided with a cargo ship and sank in the North Atlantic, leaving him among one of the few survivors. However, while records confirm that Warren served in the Navy during the war and enlisted at 17, details surrounding the alleged shipwreck are difficult to verify. Like Ed, Lorraine grew up in a devout Catholic household. Born Lorraine Rita Moran on January 31st, 1927, she attended Laurelton Hall Catholic School, which was a private prep school in Milford, Connecticut. Also like Ed, Lorraine claimed that she began experiencing paranormal phenomena at an extremely young age. Among her earliest stories was an account of seeing what she believed to be an angel while visiting a hospital as a child. When Lorraine was 16 years old, she attended a movie theater in Bridgeport, Connecticut. That's where she met her future husband, Ed, who was working as an usher at the time. Lorraine would later say that the moment she saw him, she somehow knew he was the man she was going to marry. In 1945, while Ed was home on leave from the Navy, the couple married at just 18 years old. Soon afterwards, they welcomed their daughter, Judy. Following the war, Ed enrolled in an art school, and the couple adopted a somewhat nomadic lifestyle. They traveled throughout New England painting pictures of homes rumored to be haunted and offered the artwork to homeowners in exchange for permission to investigate the properties. It was during these travels that Ed and Lorraine's interest in paranormal investigation began to take shape. By 1952, they decided they needed a permanent place to raise their daughter. The family settled on a wooded property in Monroe, Connecticut. It was here that they would later establish the New England Society for Psychic Research, commonly known as NESPR. At this point, like many struggling artists, Ed and Lorraine began to realize that painting buildings was not a financially stable career. According to their own accounts, they increasingly turned their attention towards paranormal investigation. The couple began combing through local newspapers in search of reports involving unexplained phenomena. Once they identified a potential case, Ed would arrive presenting himself as a self-taught demonologist, while Lorraine claimed to possess clairvoyant abilities that allowed her to perceive spirits and supernatural forces. Together, they offered what many homeowners desperately wanted: answers. They claimed to possess the knowledge and abilities necessary to identify, confront, and remove whatever unseen forces were allegedly haunting the property. For those of us who grew up in Connecticut, there's a good chance you've heard a location described as being Ed and Lorraine certified haunted. Over the decades, the Warrens became so deeply ingrained in New England folklore that their names alone were enough to transform an ordinary old house into a local legend. Part 2. Rise to Fame. From there, Ed and Lorraine began publishing books detailing their investigations and experiences with the paranormal. While they often stated that they never charged money for their investigations themselves, they found other ways to monetize their growing reputation. The couple became regular speakers at colleges and universities across the entire United States, presenting photographs, audio recordings, and alleged video evidence from their cases. It was during these lectures that Ed frequently referred to himself as one of America's foremost demonologists, while Lorraine promoted her claimed abilities as a clairvoyant and trance medium. As their profile continued to grow, so did the number of cases associated with their names. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, the Warrens became involved in some of their most famous or infamous investigations. To believers, these investigations served as proof that the couple possessed genuine insight into the supernatural. To skeptics, however, they raised a very different question. With each new case came increased scrutiny. Despite decades of investigations and thousands of reported hauntings, critics argued that the Warrens never produced conclusive proof of either Lorraine's psychic abilities or the existence of the demonic entities they claimed to encounter. By the late 1970s, their reputation had grown far beyond Connecticut. The Warrens were now being invited to cases across the country, and their name alone carried a kind of authority in the world of paranormal investigation. Part 3. Amityville. In December 1975, George and Kathy Lutz purchased a home on 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York. The house had an infamous history. Just 1 year earlier, in 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr. had murdered 6 members of his family inside the property. Despite this, the Lutz family moved in with their 3 children, reportedly hoping for a fresh start. Within days of moving in, the family claimed they began experiencing a series of disturbing events. Doors would slam on their own, cold spots appeared throughout the house, strange odors filled rooms without any explanation, and at one point they even claimed that a green, unidentified slime began oozing from the walls. With that, just 28 days after moving in, the Lutz family fled the home, leaving behind most of their belongings. Their story immediately attracted national media attention, and within months it had become a cultural phenomenon. It was around this time that Ed and Lorraine Warren became loosely connected to the case. A local television crew investigating the claims invited the Warrens to participate in a televised segment and staged investigation of the property. During the televised event, Lorraine Warren described feeling an overwhelming sense of evil within the house, later telling an interviewer, "I hope this is as close to hell as I'll ever come." However, the segment itself produced no observable paranormal activity, and no independent evidence of supernatural phenomena was ever recorded during the filming. Importantly, the Warrens did not conduct the original investigation of the Lutz family's claims, nor did they have any direct contact with the DeFeo case. Their involvement came after the story had already begun circulating publicly. Journalist and attorney William Weber, who worked with those involved in early promotion of the case, later claimed that key elements of the haunting narrative were developed and embellished after the fact. Part 4. Legacy. By the later years of Ed and Lorraine Warren's careers, their legacy had already taken on a life of its own. One of the most notable skeptical examinations came from neurologist Stephen Novella and members of the New England Skeptical Society, who reviewed some of the Warrens' most famous claims. Their conclusion was that there was no scientifically verifiable evidence supporting the existence of demonic activity in the cases, and that their methodology relied heavily on anecdotal testimony rather than controlled investigation. Critics also pointed to the financial structure surrounding their work. While the Warrens often stated they didn't take any money, their career was closely tied to paid lectures, published books, media appearances, and later film rights. Over time, this created a system where attention and profitability were closely linked to the strength and drama of each story. Some journalists and researchers described their career as a form of paranormal promotion, where claims were repeatedly amplified without independent verification. Others pointed to missing documentation and inconsistencies across multiple cases as evidence that many of their most famous investigations could not be substantiated. And yet, even among skeptics, there remains a complication that cannot be fully dismissed. There were real families who genuinely believed they experienced something. There were witnesses who stood by their accounts for decades, and moments across multiple cases that left people convinced that they had encountered something unexplainable. No matter how much criticism surrounds their work, the stories they collected did not come from nowhere. They came from people searching for answers. The answer depends entirely on what you choose to accept as evidence, and maybe that uncertainty is exactly why I find myself filming around this small cemetery in Monroe, Connecticut. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great night.